Have you ever felt like being alone was a punishment? What if I told you it's actually the key to unlocking your greatest strength? Stay with me, because the truth might surprise you. Throughout history, some of the most transformative moments have been born in solitude. The quiet moments, the ones that feel empty, are often where the most profound revelations happen. But why is that? And why does it feel like we're being called to be alone? Even when it's uncomfortable? In this video, we're diving deep into the wisdom behind solitude, why it's necessary, and how it can transform your life. Let's face it, being alone is hard. It's uncomfortable. And sometimes it feels like we're being forced into isolation for no reason. In today's world, we're surrounded by noise, endless notifications, constant demands, and a culture that glorifies busyness. Solitude? It's almost seen as a weakness. But what if the moments you spend alone are not a punishment but an opportunity? What if they're designed to prepare you for something greater? Most of us resist these quiet moments, but it's in the resistance that we miss the lessons they offer. So how do we stop seeing solitude as a problem and start seeing it as a gift? 1. The purpose of solitude. When you're alone, the distractions are stripped away. It's just you and your thoughts. Let's start there. What happens when the world around you fades into silence? Most people would rather avoid this scenario entirely. They keep themselves busy, surrounded by noise, people, and endless tasks because the quiet feels unsettling. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself why? Why does silence feel so heavy? Why does being alone sometimes feel like a punishment? It's because solitude reveals things. It's like holding up a mirror, not just to your face, but to your soul. And that reflection, it doesn't lie. It shows you your fears, your doubts, your insecurities, the parts of yourself you'd rather not face. Most people run from this. They turn up the volume on their lives to drown out that reflection. But here's the truth. It's only in facing that reflection that growth begins. Imagine a sculptor staring at a block of stone. At first glance, it's rough, unformed, and imperfect. But the sculptor doesn't see the imperfections, they see the masterpiece hidden within. To bring it out, they have to chip away at the stone piece by piece. That's what solitude does for you. It's the chisel in the hands of the Creator, removing the parts of you that no longer serve your purpose, revealing the strength and beauty that have always been there. You see, solitude isn't about isolating you, it's about refining you. It strips away the noise of the world not to leave you empty, but to leave you pure. It's where you discover who you really are beneath the expectations of others, the demands of life, and the distractions that keep you from seeing your true self. But this process isn't easy. Growth rarely is. When you're alone, you have no one to blame, no one to distract you, no one to validate you. It's just you and the truth. And that truth, it can feel uncomfortable. It might tell you things you don't want to hear. But it also holds the key to transformation. Think about this. Every seed starts its journey buried in darkness, alone in the soil. It's in that hidden place that it grows roots, strengthens its foundation, and prepares to break through the surface into the light. Without that time and solitude, the seed could never fulfill its purpose. The same is true for you. The moments you spend alone aren't meant to break you, they're meant to build you. They're where you learn to listen, not just to the noise of your own thoughts, but to the still, small voice that speaks in the silence. That voice doesn't compete for your attention like the world does, it whispers. And you can only hear it when you're quiet enough to listen. So the next time you find yourself alone, resist the urge to fill the space with noise or distractions. Instead, lean into it. Ask yourself, what is this moment trying to teach me? What am I being prepared for? Solitude isn't a punishment, it's a preparation. And the purpose of that preparation? To refine you into the person you were always meant to be. 2, ancient wisdom on solitude. In ancient times, leaders, prophets, and teachers often retreated into the wilderness. Why? What was it about the wilderness that called them away from the comforts of their lives? Was it the silence, the isolation, or was it something deeper? Let's step back in time for a moment. Imagine a leader standing on the edge of a vast desert, looking out at miles of empty sand and endless sky. Behind them is everything familiar: their home, their people, their responsibilities. Ahead of them is the unknown, a place where there's no map, no comfort, and no guarantee of safety. Yet time and time again, they chose to step into that wilderness. Why? Because the wilderness wasn't just a physical place, it was a spiritual space. It was where distractions fell away, where the noise of the world faded, and where they could hear the voice of something greater. It was where they found clarity, direction, and purpose. Think about it, the most significant revelations often came in solitude. The wilderness became a classroom, a place of divine instruction. It wasn't easy, nothing of value ever is, but it was necessary. Consider this: the wilderness is a place where survival isn't guaranteed. It forces you to rely on something beyond yourself. You can't control the weather, the terrain, or the dangers lurking in the shadows. All you can do is trust. And that trust, it transforms you. It strips away your illusions of control and reminds you of your dependence on something greater. But the wilderness doesn't just reveal your dependence, it reveals your strength. In the quiet, you come face to face with your fears. And it's there in the solitude that you learn to confront them, not by fighting, but by surrendering. You learn that strength isn't about resisting the wilderness, it's about allowing the wilderness to change you. This isn't just an ancient idea, it's a timeless truth. Even today, when life feels overwhelming, we're often called to our own version of the wilderness. Maybe it's a season of uncertainty, a period of waiting, or a time when everything familiar seems to fall away. These moments feel uncomfortable, even unbearable. But they're not meaningless. They're an invitation. An invitation to step away from the noise, to retreat from the chaos, and to enter a space where clarity can find you. It's in these moments of solitude that you begin to see the bigger picture. You start to understand that the wilderness isn't a place of punishment, it's a place of preparation. Think of the greatest stories of transformation. They almost always involve a journey through the wilderness. Why? Because the wilderness teaches you what comfort never can. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you faith. And it teaches you that sometimes the path to your purpose requires stepping away from everything familiar. So what does this mean for you? It means that the moments when you feel most alone, most uncertain, and most uncomfortable are often the moments when you're being prepared for something greater. They're the moments when you're called to step into your own wilderness, not to escape, but to discover. The ancient wisdom of solitude still holds true today. When you retreat into the wilderness, you're not running away from life, you're stepping toward the life you were meant to live. 3. The difference between loneliness and being alone. There's a huge difference between feeling lonely and choosing to be alone. At first glance, loneliness and solitude might seem like two sides of the same coin. Both involve being by yourself, right? But the truth is they couldn't be more different. Understanding this difference is key to unlocking the power of being alone. Let's talk about loneliness. Loneliness is an emotional state. It's not about being physically alone, it's about feeling disconnected. You could be surrounded by people in the middle of a crowded room, yet still feel lonely. Why? Because loneliness isn't about who's around you, it's about what's happening inside of you. It's a sense of longing, a feeling that something or someone is missing. And here's the tricky part: loneliness thrives in the noise of the modern world. The busier your life becomes, the more opportunities there are for that disconnection to grow. Think about it. How many times have you scrolled through social media surrounded by images of other people's lives and felt completely alone? That's loneliness. It's the ache of wanting connection and not knowing where to find it. But being alone, that's different. Being alone is a choice. It's an intentional practice of stepping away, not because you're disconnected, but because you're seeking a deeper connection with yourself. Being alone isn't about what's missing, it's about what you're gaining. It's not a lack of something, it's a gift. The key difference between loneliness and solitude lies in your mindset. Loneliness says, I'm by myself and I don't want to be. Solitude says, I'm by myself because this is where I need to be. It's the shift from feeling trapped to feeling free. But here's the thing, society often confuses the two. We've been conditioned to think that being alone is something to be avoided. If you're not constantly surrounded by people, if you're not always busy, it must mean something's wrong, right? That's the lie we've been sold. And it's time to unlearn it. When you embrace being alone, you stop looking for fulfillment in other people. You stop relying on external validation to feel whole. Instead, you start to find your sense of worth within yourself, and that's where true freedom begins. Imagine this: you're sitting in a quiet room. There's no one around, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. The silence can feel deafening. But as you sit there, something shifts. You start to hear things you haven't noticed before: the rhythm of your breath, the beating of your heart. You start to realize that this moment, this stillness, is exactly what you needed. Solitude isn't about isolation, it's about revelation. It's where you discover the parts of yourself you've been too busy to see. It's where you realize that your worth isn't tied to how many people are around you or how busy your life is. Your worth comes from within. But let's be real, this isn't an easy practice. It takes time to shift your perspective. It takes courage to sit with yourself and confront the things you've been avoiding. But the rewards are worth it. Because when you learn to love your own company, you stop fearing being alone. And when you stop fearing being alone, you become unshakable. You see, solitude isn't about running away from the world. It's about preparing yourself to engage with it in a healthier, stronger way. It's about learning to stand on your own 2 feet so that you can walk confidently no matter where life takes you. So the next time you feel the weight of loneliness, ask yourself, is this really loneliness, or is this an invitation to step into solitude? Because when you start to see being alone as a choice, it stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like freedom. 4. The noise of modern life. Today we live in a world that's louder than ever. Have you ever stopped to think about how much noise surrounds you on a daily basis? I'm not just talking about the sounds of traffic, phones ringing, or people talking. I'm talking about the constant stream of information, expectations, and demands that flood your mind from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep. Social media, work deadlines, family obligations, the endless to-do list, all of these things are competing for your attention, pulling you in 1,000 different directions. And here's the thing, when your attention is constantly divided, you lose sight of yourself. Think about it, how often do you check your phone, not because you need to, but because it's become a habit? How often do you feel the pressure to respond to messages, post updates, or stay in the loop even when you're exhausted? That's the noise of modern life. It's relentless, and if you're not careful, it can drown out what truly matters. But here's the reality: you only have so much attention to give. It's like a bucket of water. If you keep pouring it out to everything around you, eventually there's nothing left for yourself. And that's when burnout happens. That's when you start to feel disconnected, overwhelmed, and lost. So what's the solution? Solitude. Solitude is the antidote to the noise. It's where you find the stillness to hear what truly matters. When you step away from the chaos, even for a few moments, you create space. Space to think, to breathe, to reflect. Space to listen to your own thoughts instead of everyone else's opinions. And in that space, clarity begins to emerge. Think of it like a jar of muddy water. When you keep shaking it, the water stays cloudy and you can't see through it. But when you set the jar down and let it be still, the sediment settles and the water becomes clear. That's what solitude does for your mind. It clears the noise so you can see what's really going on. But let's be honest, finding solitude in today's world isn't easy. The noise is always there, waiting to pull you back in. That's why solitude has to be intentional. It's something you have to choose over and over again. Start small. Maybe it's turning off your phone for an hour. Maybe it's going for a walk without headphones. Maybe it's sitting in silence with a cup of tea. These moments might feel insignificant, but they're not. They're acts of resistance against the noise. They're a way of reclaiming your attention and giving it back to yourself. Because here's the truth: the world isn't going to get quieter. If anything, it's only going to get louder. But you don't have to live at the mercy of that noise. You have the power to step away, to create your own moments of stillness, to find your own peace. And when you do, something amazing happens. You start to hear the things that truly matter. You start to notice the beauty in the simple things, the sound of the wind, the warmth of the sun, the rhythm of your breath. You start to feel connected, not to the noise of the world, but to the quiet strength within you. The noise of modern life is loud, but it doesn't have to control you. Solitude is your sanctuary. It's where you find the stillness to remember who you are, what you value, and what truly matters. So the next time the noise feels overwhelming, remember this: you have a choice. You can let it consume you, or you can step away. Choose solitude. Choose stillness. Choose to hear what truly matters. 5. What you gain in solitude. When you embrace solitude, you start to see things differently. Solitude isn't just about being alone, it's about transformation. It's not an escape from the world, but a return to yourself. And when you begin to embrace it, the rewards are profound. One of the first things you notice in solitude is clarity. In the busyness of everyday life, it's easy to get swept up in routines, distractions, and external demands. Your vision becomes clouded by the expectations of others and the endless noise of the world. But in solitude, that noise quiets. You start to see patterns in your life, things you never noticed before. Maybe it's the way you react to stress or the habits that hold you back. Solitude reveals the truths that are often buried under the chaos. For instance, have you ever taken time to sit quietly and reflect on your day? You might notice how much of your energy is spent on things that don't really matter. That argument you had, the time you wasted scrolling through your phone, the opportunities you missed because you were too distracted. Solitude brings these patterns into focus, not to make you feel guilty, but to give you a chance to realign. And that's just the beginning. Solitude doesn't just show you what's wrong, it helps you uncover what's right. In those quiet moments, you start to understand what truly drives you. What are the things that light a fire within you? What are the passions and dreams you've been neglecting? Solitude creates the space for those answers to emerge. It's in the stillness that you can hear the whisper of your purpose. But it's not just about understanding yourself, it's about building strength. Solitude is a training ground for resilience. When you're alone, there's no one to lean on, no one to distract you from your challenges. And while that might sound intimidating, it's actually empowering. I think about it when you're faced with uncertainty or hardship, what gets you through? It's not the approval of others or the noise of the world, it's the inner strength you've cultivated. Solitude is where that strength is forged. It teaches you to stand firm even when everything around you feels shaky. It's where you learn to rely on yourself, to trust your instincts, and to face life with courage. There's also a surprising freedom that comes with solitude. When you stop looking for validation from others, you're no longer bound by their expectations. You're free to live authentically, to make choices that align with your values and desires. Solitude strips away the masks you wear for the world and allows you to be unapologetically yourself. And let's not forget the peace that comes with solitude. In a world that's constantly pulling you in different directions, there's something deeply calming about stepping away and simply being. It's in those moments of stillness that you find a sense of balance, a grounding that carries you through the chaos of life. Solitude also teaches gratitude. When you're alone, you start to appreciate the simple things, the warmth of the sun, the sound of birdsong, the rhythm of your own breath. These are the moments that often go unnoticed in the hustle and bustle of daily life. Solitude brings them into focus and reminds you of the beauty that exists all around you. Ultimately, what you gain in solitude is a deeper connection with yourself. You begin to understand who you are, what you value, and what you're capable of. And that connection is priceless. Because when you know yourself, truly know yourself, you become unshakable. You can face the challenges of life with confidence, knowing that you have the strength and clarity to navigate whatever comes your way. 6, the spiritual side of solitude. There's also a deeply spiritual side to being alone. While solitude offers practical benefits like clarity and resilience, it also opens the door to something deeper, a spiritual connection. This is the side of solitude that's often overlooked, yet it's perhaps the most transformative. In our busy, noisy world, it's easy to lose touch with the spiritual. Life moves so fast that we rarely take the time to pause and reflect. But solitude changes that. It slows everything down, creating space for you to tune into something greater than yourself. Call it God, the universe, a higher power, or simply a sense of purpose, whatever your beliefs. Solitude is where that connection becomes clear. It's not about religion or rituals. It's about the profound stillness that allows you to sense the divine. Think about the stories of great spiritual leaders throughout history. Many of them spent time alone in the wilderness, not because they were running away from the world, but because they were seeking something greater. In those moments of isolation, they found guidance, wisdom, and clarity. They discovered truths that couldn't be found in the noise of everyday life. And the same is true for you. When you're alone, you start to sense that you're part of something much bigger than yourself. You realize that life isn't just about the roles you play or the things you achieve, it's about the deeper meaning that underpins it all. Solitude helps you tap into that meaning. In those quiet moments, you might feel a sense of peace that's hard to put into words. It's not just the absence of noise, it's the presence of something profound. It's a reminder that you're never truly alone, even when it feels like it. Solitude also helps you see the world differently. When you step away from the hustle and bustle, you start to notice the beauty and wonder that's all around you. The way the sun sets, painting the sky with colors. The way the wind moves through the trees. The way life unfolds in its own rhythm. These aren't just random occurrences, they're reflections of something greater. And in solitude, you begin to see them for what they are, reminders of the divine. But the spiritual side of solitude isn't just about observing the world, it's about connecting with yourself. It's about listening to the still, small voice within you, the voice that guides you, comforts you, and reminds you of your purpose. Have you ever had a moment where everything seemed to click? Where you suddenly understood something you'd been struggling with? Those moments often happen in solitude, not because you're figuring things out on your own, but because you're finally quiet enough to hear the answers. Solitude is where you find wisdom. It's where you gain insight into your struggles and strength for your journey. It's where you're reminded that even in your hardest moments, you're not walking this path alone. There's also a sense of healing that comes with the spiritual side of solitude. When you're constantly surrounded by noise, it's easy to carry wounds you don't even realize you have. But in solitude, those wounds come to the surface not to hurt you, but to heal you. It's in the quiet that you can face your pain, process it, and let it go. Solitude isn't about being disconnected, it's about being deeply connected to yourself, to the world, and to something greater. It's a sacred space where you can reflect, recharge, and realign. It's where you can remember who you are and why you're here. So the next time you find yourself alone, don't see it as an absence. See it as an opportunity. An opportunity to tune into the spiritual side of life, to connect with the divine, and to discover the depth and beauty of your own soul. Because in solitude, you're never truly alone. You're exactly where you're meant to be. 7, how to embrace solitude in your life. So how do you embrace solitude in a way that brings clarity and strength? In a world that never stops moving, where every moment seems filled with noise, distractions, and demands, the idea of solitude can feel foreign, almost intimidating. But the truth is, solitude isn't something reserved for monks or philosophers. It's a gift available to all of us, a practice that can transform your life if you allow it. The question is, how do you begin? How do you embrace solitude in a way that leads to growth, clarity, and strength? The answer is simpler than you might think. You start small. Step 1, create space in your day. To embrace solitude, you don't need to retreat to a remote cabin or disconnect from the world entirely. It begins with carving out moments in your day, just a few minutes where you step away from the noise and distractions. Set aside 5 or 10 minutes to be alone. This might mean waking up a little earlier, finding a quiet spot during your lunch break, or turning off your devices before bed. The key is consistency. Solitude, like any other practice, becomes more natural the more you do it. In these moments, resist the urge to fill the silence. Don't reach for your phone, turn on the TV, or scroll through social media. Just sit with your thoughts. It might feel uncomfortable at first, like you're missing out on something, but that discomfort is a sign that you're breaking free from the constant pull of the world. Step 2, learn to sit with your thoughts. One of the challenges of solitude is facing what bubbles up when the distractions are gone. You might encounter thoughts or feelings you've been avoiding, doubts, fears, regrets, and that's okay. This is where the real work begins. Think of solitude as a mirror. It reflects back to you what's happening inside, the things you might not notice in the busyness of life. At first, the reflection might be hard to look at, but it's also an opportunity for growth. Because when you face those feelings, you start to understand them, you begin to see where they come from and how they're shaping your life. The key is not to judge what you're feeling or thinking. Let the thoughts come and go without clinging to them. If you feel overwhelmed, try focusing on your breath. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly, and let the rhythm of your breath anchor you in the present moment. Step 3, embrace silence. We often underestimate the power of silence. In our noisy world, silence can feel unsettling, but it's in the silence that clarity emerges. Silence allows you to hear what's truly important. It helps you separate the noise from the signal, the distractions from the truth. In silence, you can connect with your inner voice, the one that gets drowned out by the demands of daily life. To embrace silence, start by turning off the background noise. No music, no podcasts, no TV. Sit in the stillness and listen. You might hear the rustle of leaves, the hum of distant traffic, or the beating of your own heart. These sounds remind you that life is happening all around you, even in the quiet. Step 4, find your sacred space. A physical space can have a profound impact on your ability to embrace solitude. Find a place that feels peaceful to you, a spot in your home, a quiet corner in a park, or even your car parked in a serene location. This space doesn't have to be perfect, but it should feel like a retreat from the busyness of life. Keep it free of distractions and clutter, so it becomes a place where you can connect with yourself without interruption. When you step into this space, let it signal to your mind and body that it's time to slow down, to breathe, to be present. Over time, this space can become a sanctuary, a place where you recharge, reflect, and realign. Step 5, let go of expectations. One of the biggest barriers to embracing solitude is the expectation that something profound will happen every time you're alone. You might think, if I'm going to sit here in silence, I need to have a breakthrough or some great revelation. But solitude isn't about forcing insights or achieving something specific. It's about being present. Some days you might feel a deep sense of peace or clarity. Other days your mind might wander, and that's okay too. The practice of solitude is valuable even when it feels uneventful. Let go of the need to do anything in your moments of solitude. Instead, focus on simply being trust that the benefits of solitude will unfold naturally over time. Step 6, journal your thoughts. One powerful way to deepen your experience of solitude is to journal. After spending time alone, write down your thoughts, feelings, or observations. You don't need to write a masterpiece, just let the words flow. Journaling helps you process what you're experiencing. It gives you a tangible way to explore your thoughts and track your growth over time. You might discover patterns in your thinking or insights you hadn't noticed before. And the act of putting pen to paper can be incredibly grounding. It's a way to bring the intangible, your thoughts and feelings, into the physical world, where you can see them more clearly. Step 7, practice gratitude. Solitude is also a time to reflect on what you're grateful for. In the quiet, you can appreciate the simple things, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of your morning coffee, the love of a friend or family member. Gratitude shifts your perspective. It helps you focus on the blessings in your life rather than the things that are missing or difficult. And when you practice gratitude in solitude, it becomes a deeply personal and meaningful experience. Step 8, use solitude to connect spiritually. For many, solitude is a spiritual practice. It's a time to connect with something greater than yourself, whether that's God, the universe, or your own sense of purpose. In solitude, you can pray, meditate, or simply reflect on the bigger questions of life. What am I here for? What truly matters to me? How can I live in alignment with my values? This isn't about finding all the answers at once. It's about creating space for those questions to unfold naturally over time. Step 9, be patient with yourself. Embracing solitude is a journey, not a destination. It's a practice that takes time and patience. There will be days when it feels easy and fulfilling, and there will be days when it feels challenging or uncomfortable. Both are part of the process. The important thing is to keep showing up, to keep creating space for solitude even when it feels difficult, because over time those moments of quiet will add up. They'll shape you in ways you can't fully see yet. Step 10, trust the process. Finally, trust that solitude is working in your life even when it doesn't feel like it. Trust that the stillness is bringing you clarity, strength, and connection. Trust that in the quiet you're being refined into the person you're meant to be. Embracing solitude isn't about escaping the world, it's about preparing yourself to engage with it more fully. It's about finding the balance between stillness and action, reflection and growth. And when you make solitude a part of your life, you'll discover a depth of peace and purpose that can carry you through anything. The most powerful moments in life often come when you least expect them, when the noise fades and it's just you, standing alone. These are the moments when clarity breaks through the chaos. It's in these moments that you realize the strength you've been searching for has been within you all along. Solitude doesn't just reveal the truth, it prepares you to live it. The question is, will you lean into it or run from it? Solitude isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. It's in the quiet moments that we find ourselves, our purpose, and our connection to something greater. Being alone doesn't mean you're isolated. It means you're being prepared to handle life's challenges with resilience and grace. When you stop resisting solitude, you start unlocking the wisdom and strength that were always within you.